Hey everyone, happy Monday. It is the first Monday of the new year. So happy New Year. It's 2025. It's been so long since we've seen each other. I kid. My name is Janelle Villiers. I am your host of the Other Side podcast, where we are all about the other side of the mental health journey that we're all on, just trying to do better, learn better, grow. If this is your first time on the Other Side podcast, go ahead and put a one in the comments. That way I can shout you out. If this is your second time, third time, fourth time coming on, go ahead and put a two in the comments. That way I can shout out all my returnees. Love to have you here. And the way that we typically do this is I have a topic. A lot of times people will ask me certain things, or I am inspired by something that I see on social media or something that comes up on the news. And we talk about it. We talk about how to do better with this excuse me, in this particular area of our mental health. So I'm really excited to talk about today's topic, which is to stop listening to the inner critic. Can we finally and truly stop listening to the inner critic? And I love this topic because I feel like my mentor, Darren Walker, he always says, what are you saying to yourself when you don't realize you're talking to yourself? Or what do you say to yourself when you don't know that you're saying to yourself? So essentially, what are the things that you don't even realize that you're thinking but you're saying about yourself? Sometimes we're unconscious of the things that we even say to ourselves, and sometimes we're actually much more conscious of it than I think we care to admit. And a lot of times, if we're really become aware of what we're saying, I think we all realize that what we say to ourselves is really bad. A lot of it is just a lot of criticism. I mean, we really beat ourselves up. And so it may just be like, who do you think you are? What are you doing? You're not good enough. You're not smart enough. You're horrible. You're a failure. Like, um, you have to do everything perfectly, right? Like you're so weak, like everybody knows you're weak. Why would you even try? Like these are the things that I'm sure that many of us have been saying to ourselves, me included, right? I've definitely said more than one of those things that I've just said. And if you can think of anything else that you've been saying in your head, please put it in the chat and we'll just add it to the list of things. I think that awareness is number one and key. Without awareness, then we can't change or make active decisions in order to change the processing and the thinking that we've been having. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about um, this topic. Let's just get into it. So first, I thought it would be important to talk about some of the hidden reasons why your inner critics feel so powerful. And the first is past programming. So the messages that we received when we were a child sometimes also come from the second thing that I'm going to talk about, which is a false protection mechanism. So you had to tell yourself certain things in order to keep yourself safe, right? So you heard, you know, I don't know. The one that I always go to is something that happened to me, but it's like, you come home with all A's and one B, and the focus from your parents is on the B, and they're like, well, what happened? Why didn't you get all A's? Right? What's going on with that B there? And the message that I interpreted was, you're not lovable enough unless you're perfect. Unless you get all A's, you've got to be academically perfect. And then I kind of turned that message into, I have to be perfect overall. And then it was, well, I'm not perfect. So I like that I am not good enough. I'm not lovable, right? Something must be wrong with me. And so those messages that we receive when we're little and then internalize them, the brain gets wired to default to that type of criticism. See, you're not good enough, you're not perfect enough. And without even you recognizing it, it's just like this pattern that your brain has created, and it's just constantly thinking that. The other reason why the inner critic feels so powerful is because of the false protection mechanism. So sometimes it can masquerade as self-improvement, like, oh, see, not good enough, need to do better in this area, need to do more in this area. And your brain thinks that that keeps you safe, right? It keeps you safe from criticism from other people. It's like some sort of survival instinct, but it's gone haywire. Right? So I think that's the other reason why it seems so powerful, is because for a really long time it kept you safe. And then the other reason why it's so familiar is because sorry, so powerful rather, is because it's so familiar. We get comfortable in this negative self-talk. It's something that we've been saying since we were little kids. Now you're in your 20s, your 30s, your 40s, and you've been saying that for a really long time about yourself. So it becomes familiar. And so saying anything outside of that becomes unfamiliar. And so that's why it's so powerful, those three reasons. Let's talk about why self-criticism is your brain's biggest lie. The thing is that really harsh self-talk actually decreases our performance. It basically the criticism that we have of ourselves, it stifles our creativity, our growth pretty much is stifled with that as well. So this is one of the reasons why it's the biggest lie. It like keeps you from being creative. It keeps you from taking action and trying new things. It's also not really motivating. Fear-based motivation always fails in the long term, always. So you want to really say things to yourself to actually encourage yourself, to give yourself a reward. Science has actually proven that when you encourage certain behaviors, that actually works better. It's kind of like dogs are the same way, like, oh, good boy, good girl with your little dog. Like same thing with humans, actually. Positive encouragement actually helps us to continue doing the thing that we want to do. So it's a myth that this idea that if you criticize yourself, it'll somehow like motivate you to do better. And then the third lie is that or the third reason why it's the biggest lie that your brain makes is because um, it's basically a distorted reality. Your inner critic is exaggerating whatever negative qualities or things that you've done in the past. Your inner critic is just completely magnifying it and blowing it out of proportion. And that negative bias then creates this lie, like what is real versus what you are perceiving is vastly different. And so that's another reason why it's a big lie that your brain makes, is because your inner critic is completely exaggerating any of the negatives that potentially are there. So now let's talk about some game-changing tools that we can put into place to transform our inner dialogue. And so the first is to observe. Just observe the fact that you had a negative thought. Don't do anything about it. Don't beat yourself up about it. Just, ah, wow, I just had a really negative thought. I just said to myself, you're ugly. I just said to myself, you're an idiot. Huh. Huh. That's it. Just observe, right? The first thing is to observe. Remember, awareness is super key. If you don't even realize that you're doing it, then it's not going to work. Like none of the things that we talk about after this are going to work. So really and truly, just I want you to observe. Just observe the negative self-talk that you've been having with yourself. That is step number one. It's the biggest step, actually. I think a lot of times people aren't even aware of the things that they're thinking. But now that we're talking about it and you're actually watching this podcast, so I know that you're into this stuff. Number one, you need to be aware. And then once you're aware, no judgment on it. Just literally observe it. You said a negative thing about yourself to yourself. Okay. And then I think we start to practice that. Just, oh, I had this thought, and not really digesting the thought and like internalizing, like, huh, I just had a thought. But it's just a thought. It's not real. It doesn't mean that it's real. It's just a thought that you have, and just like letting it pass by. The second thing to do is to reframe with compassion. So after you observe the negative thought you just had, "Ugh, I'm an idiot. I'm unlovable. I'm never gonna be I'm never gonna be good enough for this, or I'm just not enough. I'm not worthy, right? Maybe so those are some of the things that you've been saying. Observe it. Huh, I just had that thought. And then reframe. Speak to yourself like you're a loved one. What would you say to a loved one in that situation? If you heard your loved one say, "Oh, I'm not lovable," or "I'm an idiot," you would say to that loved one, "No, you're not. You're not an idiot. You're really, really smart. You're just going through a tough time. You're just trying to figure this thing out," right? So then reframe with the pot with compassion. What if is a great question to ask to shift that perspective as well. So you're having a tough time, you're not able to find a solution for something, you just called yourself an idiot. If you were talking to a friend, you're like, well, what if you're just having a bad time? It's just challenging right now, but it's not going to be like this forever. What if you actually are beautiful? It's just the image that you're seeing is somehow distorted, but you really are beautiful. What if you really are enough? And if you are enough, that means that you can do this really difficult, hard thing. What if is a great way to reframe. And the third thing that you can do to help transform this dialogue is to give evidence to essentially challenge the negative thought. So collect proof against your inner critic, essentially builds a success inventory. Something that's based on reality, not on this like exaggerated self-image of all these negative things. But I said this is we've talked about this before when it's making little promises to yourself and then actually sticking to them. So today, for example, I said I was going to um something that I want to do, I want to look into is becoming a professional house sitter, for example, where people hire me to come look after their house while they're away. I think it's something that I could do really well. I work from home. I think I could do it anywhere in the world. Why not give it a shot? And I said to myself, I was going to take some time to actually look into those websites, look into the apps that do that, and then create a profile. I said I was going to do that Sunday, didn't do it. And then I was like, no, today I have to do it, even if I only spend 30 minutes doing it. And I actually spent the 30 minutes doing it this morning. And I was like, oh, look at that. I did the task. I did it. That is a win for me. It's this thing that I said I was going to do, has no major consequence on anyone but myself. But I feel really good to know that I actually put the time in to do it. You know, another thing, 15 minutes a day, I'm going to spend organizing my next book. That's right. I'm going to write another book. This book isn't going to be a memoir. It's not going to be about my life, but it's going to be about how to write books. Everything that I've learned up to this point. And I promised myself that I would spend 15 minutes a day organizing and putting this book together. And I did that. I was really excited because I've been doing that for the past 2 days. It's been a lot of fun, like doing the thing that I said I was going to do. It's a simple win. I mean, but here's the thing. It was just as simple for me not to do that, right? I could have not done that. Oh, hey, Tennille. Do it. It's so fun. Yes. Yes. So I think it's about keeping the little promises that you have, right? Keeping those promises to yourself creates a level of confidence. These are the wins. These are the little wins that you can start to do. And if you can start to collect evidence for, yeah, I can do it. There was this time that I was going through this really, really hard time. Like we can look back at 2024, right? And we can all look back and think of things that were really challenging for us. And now look, here we are, fast forward, and we've gotten past it. We've gotten through it. So it's just proof that we can do hard things. We can get through difficult challenges and spaces during our lives, right? Collect evidence based in reality, showing that you can do the things, showing the opposite of what your negative self-talk is telling you. When I put my hair in that particular way or I wore that dress, like I actually did look beautiful, right? Evidence, beautiful, whatever that is. So those are 3 helpful tips for how to transform your inner dialogue. Now I want to talk about how we can finally break free from the negative self-talk. And so one is to interrupt the pattern. Create like some sort of stop signal anytime you have a negative thought. Physical anchors to break a thought cycle could be really cool. So a physical thing could be, maybe you cross your fingers or put your hand, well, this also looks closed off, or maybe you touch your head, right? Like just like a literally something to stop the cycle. Like oh man, I just had a negative thought. There I am thinking I'm not good enough, I'm unworthy, I'm unlovable, right? And just I'm having that thought. So like get yourself out of the pattern. It's really, really helpful. And if you take those like immediate physical shifts, it's really surprising how it can shift a mental difference as well. Kind of break those neuronal pathways that have literally have been like dug into your neurons because you've been thinking them over and over and over again. And this kind of like physical thing like disrupts it. Okay, the second thing that we can do to break free from negative self-talk is create a self-compassion routine. Morning affirmations, of course, are great. I love morning gratitudes, regular self-appreciation exercises. Be grateful to yourself for doing certain things. Build daily kindness habits. I'm going to be kind to myself and actually feed myself. My body needs fuel. I'm going to feed myself something healthy for lunch or dinner or whatever that is, right? So, like, build self compassion, a self compassion routine. Doing something in the morning to get yourself again in that mindset. Gratitude is great. And I would say, think of at least one thing that you can be grateful for yourself. A lot of times I'll say, I'm grateful for God for waking me up. I'm grateful for my parents. I'm grateful for my family. I'm grateful for my home. I'm grateful for the money in my bank account. Great. But then what is something that I can say I'm grateful to myself for doing something for myself? And so for me, it was for this morning, it was I'm grateful for the fact that I went to bed early last night so that way I could wake up really refreshed in this morning. So I went to bed, don't laugh, but I typically go to bed around typically I would say I go to bed around like 9 o'clock. I'm usually in bed falling asleep. Right. But the last couple of nights before that, for whatever reason, I was up until 10, 11 o'clock, and I was having a really difficult time in the morning. Because for me, no matter what time I go to sleep, I tend to wake up at 5:30 in the morning, no matter what. So going to sleep early is really helpful for me. And I was grateful that I did that for myself. I was grateful that I went to sleep early. So that's the type of thing that we're talking about in terms of a self-compassion routine and creating a gratitude list for yourself. Yes, like Snoop Dogg to do. I want to thank myself for the things that I did for myself. That's right. Okay, and so the third way that we can free ourselves from negative self-talk is changing your environment, creating physical reminders of your worth around you, creating a supportive system of positive voices around you, and surrounding yourself with compassion cues. I think this is a really great, again, it's the how do you stop the cycle? If you have a compassion partner, if you have a accountability partner, this is something that you guys can add to your accountability partner. It's like, hey, what's one negative thought that you had about yourself today? Tell each other. It's like, okay, that's a real honest thing. And then have the other person disrupt it, right? Explain the inverse or give evidence to the other way around, right? So creating some positive voices around you, creating physical reminders of your worth, right? Whether that's putting pictures of you around, of you smiling, of you having joy, those types of things, or maybe it's just the word joy, right? Just these physical reminders. I also have in my room something that my mentor said, which is to saying how much I'm worth. If I had to put a dollar amount on it, right? I'm worth $1 billion. And so how much is that? How much is my hour worth? How much is 20 minutes of my time worth? And if that's the case, 20 minutes of my time, just in case you were wondering, it's about $33,000, if I'm not mistaken. I have to go back and do the math, but you get the point, right? I have all these reminders about my worth and asking God to put in my life, who's supposed to be in my life, to continuously show me my purpose, all of these things, right? These are physical reminders. And then surround yourself with compassion cues. Like, I am worthy, I am lovable. Those kinds of things. I have those signs around too. Sometimes you can put them in your bathroom, put them on your wall. One place that I used to put it to disrupt is put it on my fridge, right? So every time I open the door, I would see like a note to myself. So these are just, you're doing the best you can with everything you've got. Like you've got this, things like that. So putting these in place will be really helpful for breaking free of that negative self-talk that we have. So let's review. Oh, sorry. Oh my God, how I go to sleep at like 2 a.m. I don't know how you do that, Tennille. I really don't know. And then I don't know what time you wake up, but my body always wakes up at 5. So if I went to sleep at 2, I would be getting 3 hours of sleep, and I would not be good for anybody. So no, my body just shuts down. I don't know what to tell you. And yeah. I've been like this since I was a teenager. It's really difficult for me to stay up too late. I tend to fall asleep and also rise with the sun. Okay, so let's have a recap, right? So first we went over the hidden reasons why your inner critic feels so powerful. 1, it's because of past programming. 2, it's the false protection mechanism that we've created because of the past programming in our childhood. And 3, the familiarity trap. It's familiar, and so you want to continue doing the things that are familiar. Next, we talked about what are some self-criticism, or excuse me, why self-criticism is your brain's biggest lie. Number 1 is the performance paradox. It actually doesn't help us perform well. Number 2, the reason why it's the biggest lie is because of the false motivation myth. We think it's going to motivate us. It really doesn't. Encouragement is what motivates us. And number 3, the reason why it's the biggest lie is because of the distorted reality effect. Our negative self-talk exaggerates our negatives. They're not real. Then we went over some game-changing tools to transform our inner dialogue. And so number 1, it's the observer method. Just observe. Don't judge, just observe it and let it go. Number 2, the compassion reframe. So take the thought that you recognize and observed was negative and then reframe it. And number 3, the evidence challenge. Take that negative thought and then start to create evidence to prove why that negative thought is actually wrong. And then finally, we talked about how to finally break free from negative self-talk. Number 1, pattern interruption. So create a stop signal for the negative thoughts. Actually do a physical thing to break the cycle of the thought. So that way it's no longer unconscious. You're actually conscious of doing it. Number 2, creating a self-compassion routine. I think that should include giving gratitude to yourself for something that you've done. Doing regular self-appreciation exercises, things like that. And number 3, change your environment. Design your environment to create reminders for your worth, create supportive systems around you, whether that be with people or with reminders on your phone, things like that. All of that will be helpful for finally breaking free of the negative self-talk. If you found this valuable, please let me know in the comments. Put a big V in the comment section and let me know that this was valuable to you. I love these topics. Keep bringing in these topics. If you have something that you want me to talk about, please let me know. I'm here for it. I'm open to all of those ideas, and then we can learn and we can grow together. That's the whole point. What I am just going to say and just add here at the very end is that there was just a holiday season. We are now entering into a new year, and the biggest gift you can give to me right now is free. It's absolutely free. It doesn't cost you anything, but it would mean the world to me. And that is if you subscribed. Subscribing helps this channel grow. It helps to tell the algorithm and YouTube that this is important information, that others should be hearing this information. Sharing it. So if you could share it on your Facebook, share it to your YouTube, share it with friends, other people who need to know these insights is also really helpful. Let's just grow this community so that way we can all learn more and grow together. It is literally the calling for my life for us to be able to learn and grow together and do better for our mental health. It has been amazing. Thank you, Speaks Life, Mr. Speaks Life. I'm glad you're subscribed. Thank you so much for that. I appreciate that gift. Enjoy the rest of your week, everyone. I look forward to seeing you next week. Until then, have a good night. Bye.